Welcome to the Full Circle podcast with Julie, Glenn and Phil. Exploring and expanding the consciousness. Learning from each other. We discuss and explore our journeys of spiritual development. You are now tuned in to the Full Circle frequency. Hello and welcome to the Full Circle podcast. I'm Phil. I haven't got Julie or Glenn with me this evening, so we're recording an extra slice of the podcast. I have a very special guest with me this evening. As you can see on screen already, welcome Tobias Matthew, self-healing coach. Tobias, you're based in the UK, in Leeds?
Yes, yeah, up in Leeds, yeah.
So quite local, really, quite local to us.
Yeah, I have to admit, I'm actually not too sure where you're based.
We're just in Nottingham, so not far down the M1, really.
Yeah, not too bad.
I'm more Chesterfield.
Okay, yeah. Oh, brilliant.
Yeah. So thank you so much for agreeing to coming on and recording an episode with us. It's exciting to have you on because I've seen the work that you do on TikTok and on Instagram and the videos that you put out, and so the insightful videos that you put out, and they're so inspiring to listen to. So really well done with that.
Thank you, I appreciate that. It's really good to be here.
I'd like to ask you, before we get into that, I'd like to ask you about your beginning and your own spiritual path, your own awakening. When did that awakening for you happen?
Yeah. For me, I think like many people, I'm on that wave of COVID. It was the COVID awakening.
Yeah.
And I think there's many of us, I have to admit, where it was that first lockdown, living alone, by myself, not seeing another person for 3 months really, other than through the checkout screens at Asda. And just not looking after myself, not really knowing how, to be honest, not knowing how to look after myself. And I was drinking to cope, smoking weed to cope, just not taking care of my mental health at all, and just really spiraled, into a state of depression, anxiety. I mean, I was pretty paranoid as well. I remember it was just, it seems like such a long time ago now because so much has happened. But yeah, it was that kind of brought it about. And then I'm kind of changing the language I use now here to a breakthrough, but I suppose it was a breakdown. When I met some friends towards the end of those 3 months, and just was fully hysterical, crying. Just for hours. I mean, there was so much stuff that came up that I think I'd been holding on to for years. That as I now understand, being on the journey I've been on, holding on to trauma and wounds and all these kind of things. But that just was a very, very healing, profound moment for me, where I suddenly kind of felt very empowered to have done that, in front of a couple of guy mates, where it usually would have been a bit scary to do that. And I just felt, there's something here, something that I just called me to kind of look deeper into this, and kind of I looked up self-help books. There was The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, which is, I'd say essential reading for anyone on a spiritual journey.
Yeah.
And something just said that's it. That's your book to listen to. So I listened to it on Audible, and it's a cliche, but it changed my life overnight because it just opened me up to this world of spirituality, something I had no idea about. I'd always been a realist, I'd always been one of those sort of, I don't want to call it pragmatic, but just very straight and narrow, toe the party line, skeptical, closed-minded, shall we call it. But it just made so much sense to me, and something just awoke within me, the awakening. And
when you say you awoke there, Tobias, what we could say was you were asleep before.
I was, 100%.
Like a lot of people still are.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the social conditioning, you know, the matrix, as a lot of people call it. It had me deep.
Yeah, I've been talking to a friend earlier on, and we were talking about the Matrix today, and you just prompted that thought. I will send you a clipping. It's just something to read, but I'll send you that later. It is absolutely fantastic. You'll love that. Talking about books, then, what? So you've read The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, which is a fantastic book. What?
Yeah.
Any others? I mean, a lot.
Yeah.
There's so many books out there, such as Conversations with God. I don't know if you've.
Yes. Yeah.
Fantastic trilogy of books.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I would recommend those to anybody.
Yeah.
There was another one that I can't quite remember the name of. But any other, what about other books? Do you recommend any other books?
Like you say, there's so many. You know, all, but certainly many of them profound in their own way. I mean, Conversations with God, for me, that took my journey to the next level, I think.
Yes,
it took me to really having an understanding of this idea of God, not in the sort of religious tyrant man in the sky kind of thing, but this energy, you know, this divine thing which, you know, flows through all of us. It just I think it's, someone else said, you know, I think it was a review of those books, that you've given me a God that I can believe in, and that's how I felt. You know, it was like, this is something I can get behind, and that was powerful. I think the number one book I always recommend, and I give this as recommended reading to all my clients or anyone that I speak with now, is The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer.
Right.
I don't know if you know Michael Singer's work, but
no, I don't actually.
Very incredible. He's done two books, both of which I recommend. The first was the Untethered Soul, which is, it talks about a lot of the sort of, you know, the concepts of ego and the mind and actually energy and emotions, but in a very sort of relatable way, so that I think anyone can pick up that book and find something in it for them. So it's very powerful like that. And another book he did called The Surrender Experiment, which I actually owe that sort of technique, if you like, that he talks about there for you know, where I am today. It's basically his life's journey, you know, where he had his awakening in college in America in the 60s or 70s, something like that. And sort of had this realization that, you know, whenever I try and control life, it doesn't quite work out. But there seems to be a way that when I don't control it, or when we as humans don't try and control it, life has a way of working out for the best. So what happens if I just let go and I trust life and I trust whatever comes up instead of listening to my ego? And so he did this, and he did it, you know, throughout his whole life. And it's just an incredible life story. You know, he ended up building multi-billion-pound businesses and finding this big spiritual community in America that he never really wanted to do, but he was kind of, you know, it almost fell into that path. He was guided to it. And that's the idea of surrender, you know, surrendering to what life brings instead of what you try and control. I owe that to finding the courage to surrender to this calling I felt to get myself out there, you know, and step into being a coach and stepping past the, shall we say, anxiety and the fear and the nervousness about putting myself out there that I had beforehand. It was really, really powerful. So I'd say those two from Michael Singer are probably right up there for me.
That's a massive step for you, to that leap of faith. That has to take so much courage to leave a job and go for that call, and just leap for that calling as a spiritual coach, as a self-healing coach. So I commend you for doing that. I mean, that's something that holds a lot of people back, thinking, well, actually, what am I going to do? What will I do for money? How will I pay my bills if I just leave my job? So really well done for that, for doing that.
Thank you. I mean, you know, it's been a process to get to that point, and you know, it was a gradual bit. I mean, it started off with just making the decision that I wanted to set my own business up, and then, as you do when you start to awaken, things started coming my way. You know, little YouTube ads that I usually would have skipped, and a voice said, watch that. And it took me towards a training thing or a community that helped. And then I met my coach, Frank, who is incredible, very spiritual, very aligned. and he was the one that sort of opened me up to the idea of becoming a coach. And it was probably, I think we were probably working together for maybe about four or 5 months before I signed my first client. And I just said, yeah, I'm going for this now. Let's take the plunge, and if I have to get another job, I have to get another job. But it felt like the time. And yeah, thankfully we're still going. So
that's brilliant. So you still have your own mentor then at the minute?
Yes. Yeah.
So how do you think that's, for me, I have a couple of mentors that I can go to, that I watch on YouTube and that sort of thing. How important do you feel it is to have a mentor? For me, if I'm working with a client and I need advice for that client, that's where I would go to my mentor for as well. How important do you feel it is to have a mentor?
I think it's really important. I mean, he says to me that every coach should have a coach, and I definitely buy into that.
Yeah.
But I think everybody should have a coach or a mentor or a guide or a therapist or a person. I think that there's something very healing and spiritual, and just, even if you're not a spiritual person, there's just something very profound about having someone who is just there to listen and be there and hold a space of non-judgment that we don't really have that today, and I think unless you've had that experience, it's something very different from going to a friend. That friend might listen in non-judgment, but they usually probably will impart their own, perspective onto you a little bit. Not to say that mentors can't do that, but it's just, it's just something about it. I think everybody should definitely look at it. Yeah.
Yeah. There's those different levels of listening as well, isn't there? Yeah. So, a mentor would hopefully be trained in those different levels of listening, and listening in a way that we would be able to understand ourselves. So the mentor not listening to understand, and not listening to come up with questions, and not listening to come in with their own thoughts, but listening enough so you can come up with your own thoughts and for yourself to understand. Because I feel that the more you talk through things, it comes back round and you answer your own question.
That's it. That's the real gift of coaching. You're just there to be a mirror. And, I think it's the same with therapy as well, with people realizing that the client's having a conversation with themselves in many ways,
Yeah.
And certainly, I feel that, and I will offer something as a sort of reflection, but it's always their wisdom that counts, I think, which is the real
absolutely power. Because they have those answers inside. They've got the answers of the universe. It's just a case of sitting with that and allowing that knowledge to come through. It's how, I suppose, what did I read today? Your vibration is your location. And I love that, because that's talking about your future self is sending you the wisdom that you need now.
Yeah.
So you in this present moment, you're sending your past self that information that they need.
Yeah.
So your vibration is your location.
Yeah, I like that idea. I've heard that before. It's like when you're thinking about a past event and you feel a bit of, a twinge of regret or whatever it is, you're sort of communicating with your, your past self, because there's this idea, obviously, everything is happening now. There is no past and future.
No.
I like that.
We have to turn that linear line, that timeline around. So all moments are or everything's happening now, even past lives, future lives, lives on other planets. It's all now.
Yeah. Which is it's a fascinating concept, and one that you can't understand with the mind. You just have to let the mind go.
Yeah. We can't. No, we can't comprehend that, can we? Really, we can know it, but we can't comprehend it. We can't remember. I'm going to go back to the conversations with God, because that talks about we're here to remember. And a lot of people say, yeah, I remember. But actually, do you? Because we know that we're light bodies in a human form. But do we remember that? We don't remember that. And we won't remember fully, actually, until we move from this form and go into our true form.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, I was like just waffling on. I started to.
No, I love it. I loved it. I
Sorry.
resonate definitely, and I think it's we you know, the forgetting is like because I'm sort of learning about this concept of samadhi at the moment, which is, you know, the sort of the eternal self, you know, and true deep meditation, completely disconnecting from the mind, disidentifying from it, untangling your consciousness from it, and, you know, finding that state of nirvana, which, you know, we probably sometimes, if you meditate a lot, or maybe you've taken psychedelics or whatever it is, you kind of get on the edges of it. But, you know, obviously some people might call it enlightenment. But I like the idea that it's sort of almost like whenever we come out of a state like that, you know, we forget again, even if we rationally, like I rationally know and I believe that I'm more than this and I'm a being of light and all those stuff, but I don't know it until I'm in that state, which I think was kind of what you were saying as well.
Yeah, definitely. I've not taken psychedelics, but I have just bought a new tea from Glastonbury.
Right.
Yeah. It's made with mugwort. I've tried mugwort on its own, but to be honest, it didn't really do anything. So I tried doubling the dose, doubling the tea, and it still didn't do anything. So I've got a new tea now, which is called Moonflower, and that's mugwort and blue lotus flower petal.
Wow. Yeah.
So John it was from Sons of Asgard in Glastonbury.
Yeah.
And they've just opened a few weeks ago on the high street and said, actually, if your meditations, if you have this tea, your meditations will become HD. So this tea is formulated, it's blended to help you get into that state, that deep state, to go into shadow work and find true enlightenment. So have a look for that tea.
I will, yeah.
Or come and do a tea ceremony together or something.
Yeah, I love the idea of tea. I mean, I've just sort of got into herbal teas myself, but yeah, I'll have to have a look at that one. Definitely.
I've got chamomile and honey tonight.
Lovely. Yeah, I haven't got anything with me, but I'll treat myself to something afterwards, I think.
Yeah. What were we talking about? Right. Okay. I've lost track.
I know we went deep, and
we did there, didn't we? So what about going back to yourself then? What about your own practices? What would you say you do? Maybe you might do things every day, but your own practices to build your own cathedral, and any tips for building, to build that cathedral within us, that place of the universe that's within.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you know, I say I'm a big believer in the morning routine. You know, I think it's such an important thing, and having that kind of sacred space that is yours, that allows you to, you know, kind of cultivate your energy. I think this is the key that I always say with people is, you know, the difference of being a victim or being the creator to your life is how intentional are you being, you know, with waking up and creating that energy that you want to experience, instead of just kind of, you know, reacting like a victim to kind of everything that's going on. So I wake early, so I get up sort of usually between 4:30 and 5.
Right.
And do some breathing exercises straight away, you know, sort of Wim Hof style, to oxygenate the blood, you know, wake up a little bit, hop straight in a cold shower. And then I do sort of, you know, I do yoga, meditation, go outside and sort of I've just started doing this thing recently, which I got off a YouTube channel, I think, where I'll go outside in the cold and in my balcony and just sort of, you know, hold my hands and do a bit of like a manifestation, you know, sort of a surrender, and then a bit of a prayer, a release of the attachment to that prayer kind of thing, and then a bit of gratitude.
Yeah.
You know, other things like a gratitude journal, and or a bit of journaling itself, and with my green tea. So I've got that kind of ritual down, which is like my every morning, and it just and
it kind of becomes something natural that you just naturally do every day, doesn't it?
Yeah. You know, I love it. It's particularly, I think there's a bit of resistance when I first wake up till after I've got, you know, till I'm in the cold shower, especially at the moment because it's very, very cold.
See,
but once I'm out of that, it's great.
I go out for the cold. I don't do a cold shower at home, but I'm usually swimming for 6:30.
Beautiful.
I usually do about 40 lengths at 6:30, and then I spend some time in the sauna, so I'll have a bit of meditation in the sauna and then go in the cold shower there.
Lovely.
So I'll do that there, and then I'll come home, kind of turn the laptop on for work, and then mindfully make porridge and all that sort of stuff. So I find porridge can be quite mindful.
Oh, I love it. Yeah. I actually intermittent fast as well, so I don't eat breakfast till sort of after I do my morning live streams. I do a live stream every morning at about 8. But it's always some kind of either porridge or like oats with, you know, chia seeds. I love it. Yeah, love it. It's a very.
What did I have this morning? I did porridge with fruit and nuts, coconut, and honey, cinnamon.
Mm-hmm.
I cooked some apple into it as well.
Yeah, that's pretty much exactly what I had this morning. I'm not going to lie, minus the coconut.
So it makes it it can be quite a mindful practice.
Yeah.
In the morning, and that's part of my routine that I just do, really.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's something to be said for sort of cultivating, you know, not just like getting a sachet and microwaving it, you know, you're sort of preparing it and putting a bit of love into it. I think there's a lot for that, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. Because you can spend ages just stirring the pan, can't you? There's something about cooking, there's something about making porridge on the hob properly.
Yeah.
There's just something about doing it that way. It's just mindful. It's relaxing to do that.
Yeah.
It's almost a meditation on its own.
Definitely. I'd agree with that. Yeah.
Good. What would you recommend for other people if you were to say to build your own cathedral?
It's you know, there's so many things you can do. It's almost counterproductive to list off everything, because I think it just becomes an overwhelming, you know, a bit of an overwhelm, and it's like I don't even know where to start. I think that it's about finding what works for you, you know, because I mean, there's an element where you could say maybe cold showers aren't for you. I think there's an element where it's kind of like actually anything can be for you once you work through the kind of beliefs, or maybe you're someone who identifies as some, you know, people are quite proud of, oh, I could never have a cold shower. I love a hot shower, or I'm not a morning person. That's not true strictly. You just identify as that at some level, and that's what's creating that reality. But even if that's the case, you know, there's so many things you can do that might work for you better. And I think it starts with, and I think any kind of growth or change starts with this. It starts with the why, you know, before the how and the what. I think, you know, is in, why do you want to change? Why do you want to get up and do this? And then you can hone in on, well, you know, I want to feel more energized. I want to feel happier and more intentional, and not be waking up and sort of stressed and tired all day. Okay, cool. Well, you have that why. You can use that as your sort of your guidance, you know, the end point that you want to get to. What are going to be the right practices for you to do that? You know, what's your situation where you are? And I think that's something that you can kind of work out for yourself then. But really, I would say if I was going to recommend a couple for everybody, I think that I kind of got this idea from, I think it was, I can't remember the guy who founded the 5 a.m. work club, the 5 a.m. I can't remember. There's a guy, something shot. I can't remember. Anyway, he's quite well known, and he came up with this sort of 20-20-20 principle, which is like sort of 20 minutes of moving your body, 20 minutes of sort of mindful education, 20 minutes of learning in the morning. So something like that. You know, I think meditation is something that everybody. I'm wary of saying the word should, but I would certainly very advise everybody meditate and find a way of meditating that works for them.
Yeah.
You know,
I try and steer away from the shoulda, woulda, couldas.
Yes, me too. Me too. But I certainly do advise it. You know, but there's no.
It's a good practice to have.
Yes. Yeah. There is no should. It's all free for choose.
What would you say for you? How would you explain? What would you say spirituality is for you? How would you explain spirituality?
I've come to explain it as an individual journey to know yourself. I think that's how I see it, because it's the same with most words. You say one thing and it can mean 1,000 different things to 1,000 different people. A lot of people will hear spirituality and they think crystals and sage and
Witches.
yeah, exactly. And look, all those things are definitely an aspect of it for certain people.
Yeah.
But I think it's a very personal journey. I think it's just the quest to know yourself, know who you really are outside of all the programming and the patterns and the trauma. And that's why no one can ever tell you what's true for you, and you can't ever tell anyone else what's true for them. So that's why I think spirituality is kind of the essence that religion's founded from, and why there's a difference is because there's no kind of rules or guidance for just spirituality in itself, because that's for the individual to decide, the individual journey to kind of
there's no governing body in spirituality.
No, exactly.
There's no governing body in spirit, is there?
Yeah.
Really.
No.
So there's no set rules. I suppose that's where religion comes in, because they've imposed set rules.
Yes.
And we think religion comes from a place of fear more than anything, so because it's a case of believing this God, or this will happen.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, some people would say sort of Buddhism is a religion, but it's not quite in the same way. I think it can vary, but I definitely see it as like a framework almost, or a methodology.
Yeah.
To get to the same kind of thing that.
Yeah, there's an argument with Buddhism, isn't there, to be as whether it is a religion or it's not, because some people, I don't agree. I don't see Buddhism as being a religion, because it's quite a personal process for me.
I'd agree.
Like the Buddhist principles, and like Reiki principles, I like aspects of Christianity. I connect with Christ consciousness. A lot of scripture ties in with what we do. A lot of scripture comes down to sacred geometry and numbers. It's all maths.
It's so interesting hearing the Bible through the lens of spirituality, isn't it, now? And you hear all these famous passages. One that comes immediately to mind is Jesus saying on the cross, "Forgive them, for they know not what they do." this takes on a whole new meaning when you realize that, he's talking about ego and people being unconscious, and things like that. Knock and the door shall be opened unto you, or seek and the shall be given. This is all the law of attraction and manifestation. When you see it through that lens, it's very interesting, isn't it?
And like Jesus himself was a medium. Jesus was a healer. Jesus was a psychic. Jesus, dare I say, Jesus was a Buddhist monk. He did go away to study in the East.
Did he?
I think that's in that period. There was an age gap where he came back when he was 30 or something.
Right.
In that age gap was when he went away to study in the East. So, did he go to Tibet? Did he go and study in Tibet? Who knows?
Yeah.
And Christians, actually, the Christian faith, actually take a lot of symbolism from the flower of life. Let's say if I pronounce it wrong, I apologise. The Vesica Pisces, which is the two circles on the Chalice Well, actually at the Chalice Well in Glastonbury. So the Christians have taken that Christian fish from the centre of those two circles, and that's where their symbol of the fish came in.
Right. Okay.
From there.
Yeah. I know of the pine cone in the Vatican is quite a big in the Catholic faith, and I think that's related to the idea sort of the flower of life and things like that as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Or is that the pineal gland? I'm not something.
It is. Yes, I think it is the pine cone is the pineal gland. I'm sure I've heard that before. So we digress. We get
we do
go on for ages, couldn't we?
Absolutely, it's a rabbit hole.
I want to ask you about the platforms that you work on. What made you decide that TikTok was the platform for you?
So I think initially I'd started on Instagram, and I'd sort of I started an account, and then I thought, this is silly. Why don't I just use my personal one? And went through a lot of fear, actually. Kind of, I almost used the word coming out. That phrase. It was sort of a little bit like that in front of all of my friends. There was a lot of fear to work through. Sort of this big change of identity, which obviously can be quite triggering for people. The ego likes things to be in neat little boxes, and here's someone suddenly just completely changed and is talking about all this stuff. But it seemed pretty clear that TikTok was becoming the platform that was the best way to connect with people. Yes, quick growth, but more importantly, connect with people directly. The power of video, the power of the lives, and just the way that it was growing. My coach and I and the others sort of within that community, made the decision to get on TikTok, and I started to really enjoy it and found some pretty good success quite early on, and I never really looked back from there, to be honest. So yeah, that was it.
A lot of people are walking away from platforms such as Facebook and Twitter.
Yeah.
And even Instagram, people are walking away from those, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a number of reasons. I think the power of companies like Facebook or Meta, as it's now becoming, probably.
That's quite scary, actually.
It is, yeah, and the censorship and the sort of the prevalence of advertisement, But TikTok's not free of those things either, and certainly at the moment we're seeing there's a real push towards pay to win kind of things, and a lot of censorship still going on. I feel the future lies in the blockchain, the infrastructure that cryptocurrencies are housed on, decentralized platforms basically that aren't censored, aren't governed in the world according to Google, the world according to Twitter or Facebook, which I think is important. But yeah, we're still a little bit of time from that, I think.
Yeah. One of my mentors, in fact, her name's Chrissy Sawyer, one of my mentors, and actually she was my therapist in 2012. It was at a period where I thought, actually, there's got to be something else. And so I put myself into therapy, and it turned out that my therapist was Chrissy. And it quickly turned into, is this now a therapy session or a mentoring session? So we really had to change that contract around. And it was Chrissy that got me into meditation, got me into Reiki, got me into holistic therapies and all that, just introduced me to all of that sort of stuff. And that's kind of how I became a Reiki master and meditation coach and life coach, card reader and all that sort of stuff. But she now predominantly, she's actually not on Instagram either now, but she only works on YouTube.
Yeah.
But fantastic, so insightful, so tuned in. In fact, I will share her link with you later.
That'd be great. Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
I'm sure that you will find Chrissy really insightful as well. Do you have any mentors on YouTube or anything like that you follow that you think actually that would be good for other listeners or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly accounts and channels and things that I follow. I mean, I'm certainly not people that I know and speak to directly. There's this American guy who's quite big on YouTube called Aaron Doughty.
Yes, yeah.
You may know. He's quite big. He was a big. I still watch a lot of his content.
Yeah.
A lot of my healing focuses around the people pleaser wound, the abandonment wound, and sort of anxious attachment style type things. He does a lot of content around that, which I think I found very helpful. I'm trying to think who else it's. To be honest, I probably more than those things often, turn to podcasts and audiobooks. But yeah, he sticks out top of the mind. I know there's a lot of Eckhart Tolle stuff is on YouTube as well, which is really good. And there's do you know the company? The organization Sounds True.
No, I don't actually. I've not heard of that.
So they're really, really, really good. I think, for instance, Michael Singer, who we mentioned, there's a lot of his speeches, his recordings are his podcasts on their YouTube channel. Got some sort of Tony Robbins interviewing him and things like that. So there's a lot of a collection of spiritual teachers on there. So yeah, under Sounds True, and they're really good. I think they're an organisation in America.
Brilliant. Good. Okay. Okay. I'm going to move on to a couple of generic questions, a couple of different topics.
Let's do it.
So I've got a list, but I will select a couple of good ones. Can you tell me? So let's talk about life lessons. What life lessons did you learn the hard way?
Nobody can save you. You have to save yourself.
Yes. Yeah.
That's the first thing that comes to mind. I mean, my whole ethos is this idea: be your own savior, and that's really the coaching, the community that sort of around my audience and my coaching is focused on is that, because my journey went from believing that someone was going to come along and save me, complete my life basically in the form of a relationship. I think a lot of people get this from Disney films and rom-coms and things, to realizing that was never going to happen. That nobody can complete you, because you already are complete, and you've got to go on that journey to do it for yourself. So
yeah.
That's definitely number one for me.
Yeah, I think a lot of people look at healing as having things missing from themselves.
Yeah.
But actually, no. You already have it. You just need to remove that blockage. You need to remove to become that whole you. That entity. Explain what I'm trying to say.
But I would say it's more about letting go and unlearning than it is about adding and learning.
Yeah, we have so much to unlearn.
Yeah,
so much conditioning to unlearn. It's like literally unwrapping that onion, taking those onion layers off. We have so many layers of conditioning, don't we? So it's like really taking us back down to that base level, and then building that cathedral from there. Really.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and this is again coming out of the victimhood consciousness and realizing, and I'd say that's another thing. You're not a victim. And yes, you can be victimized. You may be the victim of abuse or something horrible, but having the identity of a victim, is something that you choose, is a response that you choose. You have the power to kind of view everything that happens to you as an opportunity, as an opportunity is to grow. I think what you just described is the essence of that, really, isn't it? And sort of letting go of those victimhood programs, and then choosing, as you put it, how to build your cathedral, how to create your life.
Yeah, definitely. I'd got something in my mind then, and it's gone. So it couldn't have been that important.
It may come back. You never know.
Hopefully, yeah. What was I gonna say? I've got no idea. Sorry. I was thinking about self-judgment. Have you suffered? Have you worked? A lot of people that I talk to at the minute come to me from a place of self-judgment and comparison to other people. Have you found yourself doing that? Have you found yourself comparing yourself in the past to what other coaches do and things like that?
Yes, I would say I don't do it as much these days as I certainly used to. It was a big part of my past, a big part of the not feeling good enough, not feeling worthy, sort of seeing, again, I think a lot of my story rested around sort of relationships and this idea of wanting love. I think that's a big part of my life path, perhaps, but a lot of comparison there. For where I am now, on the whole, I feel very confident and comfortable in myself and in my own path. However, there is, I think, particularly at the moment, being quite open, I have a desire to grow my audience and grow my presence and connect with more people and obviously expand the business, but most importantly to impact more people. That's happening quite slowly at the moment, and there is a lot of comparison that comes in at the moment from sort of seeing these people with lots of followers and thinking, well, no, do I need to do videos like that or videos like that? So that's definitely something I'm experiencing at the moment, and I think it's all part of this journey, learning to really be my true, authentic self, which is again a gradual process that I'm getting towards.
Yeah, I think it's important to remember that everybody's different. We're all different. We all have something totally different to offer. In my spiritual circle, I think I used to think, I wish I was so much more like that person because they're so fluent in in language and with the words that they use, and I think actually no, because I relate to people relate to me in my way, and I relate to so yeah. I think it's about being individual and finding your own path, finding your own way of doing things, and it is so hard to not compare yourself to somebody else and think, oh, they're so much better than this at me. But actually, remember, we're all at different levels as well.
Yeah.
We're all on that path, but we might not be at the same stage. So
that's it. Yeah,
we don't all have that same understanding of a topic, do we? I suppose.
No, and I really love the idea that the best gift we can ever give to the world is us, is you, is me, as authentically real as we are, flaws and all, and that's what we're here to do. I love that idea, and it's I think it's what so many of us struggle with because we're so conditioned to be like everybody else, to want to be like everybody else, to shun individualism in sort of the ways where it really is at our soul. And yeah, I think that's a powerful thing to connect with, to find strength and see you as you are as the biggest gift you can give.
Yeah, brilliant. What about, do you get out into nature much?
Yes, and
that's
no.
part of what you do.
Yeah, I mean, so when I started, I had this idea, this sort of this phrase, hug trees, chat breeze, which was kind of like what I started doing was going out into nature, hugging trees because I like to hug trees. It's a very, very spiritual thing to do, very grounding. And we just sort of film videos, but I don't do it as much at the moment. I'd like to get back to it. Part of it is that living in the city centre, there's not a lot nearby, and I don't drive, so there's that kind of, this is just an excuse. I'm fully aware of that, by the way, because I live in the Yorkshire Dales on my doorstep. It's not hard to get a train somewhere and find some nature.
Yeah.
But I think that's probably been part of the resistance to it. When I do, though, I love doing it. And recently I did take a week trekking around the Scottish Highlands in a van with my sister, two of my sisters actually, one of them who lives in her own van with her husband, and that was very powerful. So yeah,
that must have been an amazing experience.
Yeah, it was.
I would love to live. Dare I say it? I'd love to live in a van.
Yeah,
I'd love to have that freedom, that free lifestyle, or a boat. I've always fancied having a canal boat.
Yeah. Well, funny enough, my parents moved to Norwich not that long ago, and about 2 weeks before I went off to live in the van for the week in Scotland, my dad and I rented a boat and sailed around the Yorkshire Broads for a couple of days. So I kind of had the taste of both, and I was like, I want both of these things.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe one day we'll see.
Yeah, definitely. Getting out into nature is quite important for me at the minute. That's one of the main things that I do to recharge, rest, recuperate. Yeah. So getting out, because I'm on the border of Derbyshire in the Dales. So getting out into Derbyshire, started wild swimming earlier this year.
Yeah.
So that's quite invigorating. And I trained in Shinrin Yoku as well. So I'm a Shinrin, a forest bathing practitioner as well. So So if you do ever fancy doing anything like that,
I'd love to do that. I'd love to give forest bathing a go. That'd be great. Yeah.
So yeah. Two last questions. If you could teach the whole world one concept, what would it be?
I'll need a minute. I need a few seconds to think.
I'm going to
this
make
one.
it hard for you as well. You're not allowed to tell me I will teach them that nobody's coming to save them.
Yeah, no, I was not going to cop out and say the same thing there.
You're not allowed to say what you've already said. Well, you can do if you like. I'm not that horrible.
I think the top of my mind is an understanding of. I'm going to call it an understanding of trauma and how trauma works. But I think really within that, it's basically emotions, how to feel and regulate your own emotional state. Because I think that's at the root of so many of our problems individually and as a collective is this disconnection from emotions that we've got. I'm learning a lot about trauma at the moment from the likes of Gabor Mate. I'm not sure if you've heard of Gabor Mate. And how much that impacts us. And I think we've fundamentally as a species lost our connection to our natural gut instincts and our feelings and our emotions over, the last few thousand years of civilization, which is causing a lot of problems, a lot of disconnect from nature, a lot of, collective and individual trauma, which leads to a lot of problems as well. So for me, that would be it, I think, because when you realize that for pretty much everybody, most of the sort of surface level things you deal with usually come back to, have their roots in childhood wounding or generational trauma that gets passed on to you from parents and grandparents and all of that stuff. It's a very powerful thing to understand. And I think that's at the heart of the healing journey, and why it's important that we heal individually and as a collective. So I would say that.
Brilliant. You took me off then to, I remember years ago with regards emotions, somebody said the difference between feelings and emotions. Feelings come and go. A feeling will come and it will leave. Emotions have stories attached to them. So they'll have something attached, and that's why we keep emotion, where a feeling is fleeting.
I've not heard it described as that. I think I like that idea. I mean, this is again when we get down the angle of there's this quote, actually, you might have heard it it's in the Conversations with God, where he says words are the least reliable purveyor of truth.
I tell people that all the time.
Yeah.
I always say that is why spirit energy communicates with us through song, through colour, through birds, through feelings, because words are words are the easiest thing to misunderstand.
Yeah.
I love those books. I remembered earlier on, I was going to say, when we were talking about conversations with God, and I was going to say, it's not until we remember that we are part of God that we understand we have the power to create a universe. We are that powerful. We can create a universe. We have the power of God. We have that power.
Yeah. That we are God. We are creators in a sense.
Yeah. So I wonder if I'm going to get really deep now. I wonder if the God that we talk about is actually an energy that remembered it was part of another God and created its own universe.
Wow, I love that idea. Yeah. I like it, because you hear people sort of say, well, what if we are just like an atom, that this universe is like a cell, and then, because I think there's the idea as above, so below, or that it's infinite in every direction. So there is no bottom. So it's like, the smallest bit of particle that we see could be a universe in itself, and maybe it just goes on and on and on. Sort of a similar idea, I think, to what you were saying. But yeah, I like the way you put it.
I make things simple, I suppose.
Yeah, it's a good talent to have.
I'm used to when I worked as a trainer, I was used to having to break down questioning for professional discussions and things like that. Working with some of the learners, I'm so used to having to break things down and make it simple to understand.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good knack to have. I think it's one of the talents that I have.
Definitely.
Last question, because I'm aware that you've got another appointment at past, so I won't keep you. Can you tell me what you are grateful for today? Something that you're grateful for?
Many things, Phil. I'm grateful being here with you. Not to say the obvious thing, but that's the first thing that comes up. I think, top of my mind, actually, I just started a new kind of breathing technique. I say new kind of breathing technique. I said I do breathing techniques in the morning, and for the last sort of few days, I've been doing just sort of 15 minutes of deep breathing in and out. And I've had 3 days in a row of some pretty mystical experiences from doing that. Just this big, like my whole body sort of vibrating, feeling a lot of blockages release, and just feeling very high on life after it. And I think I'm very grateful to have added that to my routine. So I'm going to say that.
Brilliant. Thank you.
What are you grateful for? Can I ask you that?
What am I grateful for? I'm grateful for opportunities. I am grateful for being pushed out of my comfort zone on a daily basis. I'm grateful for change and challenge, and I'm grateful for that opportunity to work on that resistance to change.
I love that. Yeah. That's a part. I love bringing gratitude to pain, gratitude to challenges, and seeing them as the opportunities to grow. I think that's really powerful. Yeah.
And I have so much gratitude, Tobias, for yourself. So thank you for being with us this evening. It's been such a pleasure, and I hope actually that we could have gone on for that long. I would love to have you back for another episode.
Let's do it.
And maybe join with Glenn and Julie as well.
Yeah.
Julie works predominantly. Julie works as a yoga instructor and healer. She works with Egyptian and Atlantean energies.
Wow.
She's also a singer, songwriter, and she channels Karen Carpenter.
Right.
So that is fabulous to listen to when she's singing. She also owns a koi carp shop. And Glenn, so Julie is like really, really busy writing albums and that sort of stuff.
Wow.
Glenn works full-time as a medium and spiritual coach as well. And also a music producer and a drummer in a band. So we also really quite busy, but we were kind of thrown together in January. I met Julie last December properly. Said, can I book in for healing? We were just drawn to each other. And I booked in for healing with Julie. And I said, do you know what I really fancy? I really feel that I'm being pushed into doing a podcast. And she said, well, that sounds good. I said, do you fancy doing something like that? She went, yeah. And then we spoke to Glenn about it. And literally the week after, we were recording the first episode.
Amazing.
So the universe
loves
really
speed.
Pushed that together really quickly.
Yeah. Brilliant. I'd love to come back on. I'd love to meet the other two as well. That'd be great. Yeah. Been a pleasure.
Lovely. And thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Namaste, everybody.
Namaste. Yeah.
Thank you for listening and continuing to support the Full Circle podcast. We would love for you to subscribe and share. Don't forget to find us on our official Facebook page. Until next time, have a good time, all of the time.